edit everything for me. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're back. The FTCA podcast is back. And Dr. Chris Howson, you're going to be our first guest. But let me start this all out by saying we're going to have a new platform, a new procedure with the FTCA podcast. We're going to do video, and we're going to publish to our usual podcast outlets like iTunes and all that. Before we get started, we've also changed a little bit in the FTCA and how we deal with things. We have partners and we have sponsors. And I want to run down a list. This isn't going to be a big, long ad for every one of our sponsors, but I do want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors. First, our primary partner is World Spine Care. We believe in their what would you call it? I guess you would call it their philosophy, their approach, what they're trying to do with the world, what they're trying to do with the global burden of spine pain throughout the world. So we deeply support World Spine Care and their cause. So they are our main partner. Now for our sponsors, we'll get to present sponsor as we go, but our sponsors are Hyperice, China Gel, Jane App, T-Tool, the Smart Chiropractor, ChiroUp, Gestalt Education, and last but not least, Drop Release with the inventor, the founder, and the man behind the machine that is called the Drop Release. Our guest right now is Dr. Chris Howson. Hello, sir. This is the Scrubby Brothers Fireside Fall Chat.
That's right. That's right.
How's it going with you up in the Dakotas?
It's going good.
I hope this fire is nice and toasty and warm for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's actually not too bad yet. We had some snowflakes last night, but that was about it. So
snowflakes. Don't start. Not
the kind you have in Portland.
Yes, not the kind we have here in Oregon. No. I was thinking before we got started, I said, one interesting thing, it's been ruminating in my mind quite a bit, especially during this COVID thing. And this is the first podcast I've done since COVID. Usually you would think it's the opposite, right? We're all stuck in our houses and stuck to our computers. You think you would ramp up the podcasting and do all kinds of digital stuff, but I really figured I would go the opposite direction, just kind of turn it all off and retune myself and kind of reposition what I wanted to do as far as the FTCA and podcasting and all that in general. And I was in one of the thought processes that came across my mind, especially when we do Chiropractic Success Academy and we do all these things where we try to help chiropractors, just whatever you want to call it, win, be better at their practices, be better at business or whatever is, this trying to wrap my mind around service-based industry and creating things, objects. During this COVID experience, I've gained a lot of respect for people that make things like sculptures and knives, and they fix cars and they build houses and they do these things that recently over by my house, there's a new bike bridge. Like somebody thought of that and put together all the materials to make a bridge, and those things last a long time. They have this permanence about them, or semi-permanence. And so I gained a lot of respect for people who build things. And it also made me think about you and the fact that, you practice as a chiropractor providing service. And you know what, one day your hands will retire from the business of serving people, getting them out of pain. But this thing that you've invented, this tool, can go on forever because you've built it. It's made out of steel and metal and brawn and all these other things. And so I really respect that. And I wanted to know what made you want to build something and then make a business out of it. So first things first, what made you want to build something?
I mean, want to build something. I've always kind of been, I've been like that. I was the kid who took the toys apart and put them back together. And, mom can't find her knives or her hot glue guns because they're in the basement where I've been building stuff. But it came down to filling a need. I was exposed in my education to using the concept of fast stretch to release muscle spasm, tension, using just my hands and a drop piece, like a drop piece table. And occasionally we'd use a T-bar and the drop piece, and it was very uncomfortable underneath you, a lot of force. And I was working on a patient one day, and I said, man, and I actually had a T-bar in hand. I said, had a T-bar that had a drop piece built into it. That would be ideal. So I sat and searched all over for that. I tried to use my activator, didn't quite have the oomph for what I was doing. And so then I just basically took apart a bunch of drop piece devices and figured out how I wanted to do it. And I ordered some stuff and I got a wood shop, and that's what I was doing over the pandemic, is in my wood shop a lot. And so I just put something together. The first ones were made of oak, and yeah, they worked just like this one does, only, I made them by hand myself. So,
I wanted to ask you this: how many people, how many comments do you hear when people first see a drop release tool? They think it's an adjusting instrument. They think it's like one of the spring-loaded adjusting instruments on the market.
almost everybody, I think, because that's what we know. That's what we've seen. I mean, soft tissue device, we always think like a scraping type of a tool,
Yeah.
type, which is, anytime I tell people, some of my friends, like, hey, I got a soft tissue tool I developed. Oh, was it another one of those scraper things? Not, it's different, and like you've pointed out before too. The biggest obstacle to this being successful is me educating people on what it is and how it actually works, and just kind of getting out there.
Well, that's the next part. So the first part of that question, it's a two-part question, was what motivated you to build a thing?
Right.
The next part is what then gave you the crazy ass idea to then make a business out of the thing you built? You could have just built a thing for your own office and whatever.
Well, but I mean, it worked so well. It was one of those things where, hey, this works really well, and build it and get it out there. And I'm in a pretty unique situation here where we don't have pro sports in North Dakota because there's not even 1 million people here. But I live in probably arguably the hockey capital of the world. I practice in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and I was lucky enough to have a relationship with the University of North Dakota hockey team. And in fact, I'm doing a training with their staff here in either this week or next week, because they've had the drop release since the initial oak handle ones. And so we're just going to work with those guys. But the nice thing about that was being able to have all these hip flexors, basically hips that were in such need of soft tissue work. So it just when it did work that well, it was very apparent that, all right, we need to get this out there. And I didn't want to run a business, but here we are.
Well, that's the main thing to get across to people, is that chiropractors are going to look at any tool and think spine, except for the ones that already make sense to them for scraping muscles. But I don't think it's really crossed a lot of their minds the neurogenic applications of impulse into muscles. We always think of impulse into spinal joints or extremity joints, but what's the difference? What's the difference when you add an impulse into a muscle? What do people not know, or they don't prioritize as high as HVLA adjustments to the spine?
I think that just goes back to people's tendencies toward, again, what we know, right? We were, I'm gonna ruin this for everybody out there, but when I came out of school, all my buddies were AK doctors, and I did a lot of that kind of stuff. So I learned all the way through was muscle testing, and I very quickly dropped the stuff that didn't make any sense to me from a neurological standpoint. But knowing how to isolate movements and muscle groups in areas, and the specific soft tissue work part of it, that really stuck with me. So I guess that's where I kind of came to the whole game with a little bit more, I don't know if say open-minded, it would be the way to say it, but not only looking at the spine, but looking at the muscles too. And as I've had the opportunity to work with these hockey players up here, and just the way my mind works too, is you start, I remember Dr. Wallace in talking about in embryology class, how the limb buds come out and these ones turn this way and these ones turn this way, and all the connections between the hips and the shoulders, and then the effect that those in turn have on the spine, and just the whole kinetic chain model and how one area affects another, interconnectedness, stuff like that. I think that's where that came from, really. And I know, it's easy to forget that we don't all have that mindset, I guess, coming forward. But thanks to you and your team, there are a lot of us who do have that mindset. Now we can kind of find each other too.
Yeah, well, when we first started the FTCA, it definitely started on a more skeptical approach, I guess you could say, or more. I'd say more of the early people in the FTCA were like, everything is bullshit, and it's like, okay, well, if everything is bullshit, what's not?
We are nihilists. We believe in nothing.
Yeah, we believe in nothing. We are nihilists. And it's like the more layers you peel back, you're like, okay, so what is not bullshit? And once you peel back all the layers of that onion, you realize that kind of like everything is bullshit on some levels, and everything is not bullshit on some levels, depending on how you want to apply it and how reasonable you want to apply the education and the knowledge that you have, and depending on the population you're working with. Like in a situation with hockey players, this makes complete sense. And if anyone doesn't understand what a drop release is, it's a handheld is it spring? It's not spring loaded. No, it's a handheld drop table, basically. Yeah. And what it does is it helps you get into these really hard to reach joint spaces, primarily like hip flexors, around the shoulder socket. I think fantastic around the ball and socket joints, but you can tell me how it does around the hinge joints as well.
I live in the ball and socket joints with it.
And so you're thinking that's a hockey player's world too.
Yep.
Internal, external rotation of the hips. They're constantly in hip flexion. You got to think track and field sprinters. This has got to be an amazing tool. Anyone who really lives in that hunched up position.
The cool thing about it too, that it's really been in my mind lately, and I need to find the right people to do this. And, I treat the director of the kinesiology program up here. I mean, I should be able to make it happen, but you look at the research with static stretching and sprinters or maximal output athletes, and how it's, static stretching being detrimental. I can just see where, I know myself, did pretty heavy duty CrossFit for quite a while, even though it doesn't necessarily appear that way. But if I hit my own lats and subscaps and pec minors, the drop release, before I jumped on the pull-up bar, it was 1,000 times better. It's already loose. So that just, my mind goes to, okay, you can increase blood flow and get the muscle warmed up with like a hypervolt, but if you can get in there with a drop release and boom, make the muscles loose without having to stretch those capsules and things like that, like looking at pitchers and throwers and sprinters or power lifters, I think that's going to have to be run down at some point, but I don't have a giant research department.
Oh, you mean creating some sort of study, like a similar to the Gray Cook vertical leap type study, where they have people run through one type of preparation activity versus another preparation activity, and then have them do a vertical leap test or a long jump test or some sort of fast muscle twitch fiber testing situation. That'd be interesting. To do.
Early on, I actually had kind of a little mini study that I had a couple of pro level hockey guys that were training in the off season around here. And we, one of our trainers, who's actually married to one of the Lamro twins, the Olympic women's hockey players, did a FMS on them all. And then I just went and released all the usual suspects or the things that are limiting them. And then we did another one, and I have that data somewhere, but there was only like 4 people, and it was pretty low.
That's a small sample size.
Absolutely. It was almost in proof of concept stage, right? Like, okay,
right. You got to start somewhere, man.
Right. And we did another one with that, like that, with at my CrossFit gym. One of the PTs I worked with, we did the same thing, but yeah, that kind of stuff. And then the results are always good.
Right.
Yeah.
Always.
Hey, Bobby, when I do the study, the results are good, right?
Right. And when the results are bad, it was just a mistake. But it wasn't my fault. It was just out there. Something happened. There was some stock trader guy who said that he's like, whenever I was wrong, I was just joking.
Right, exactly.
You weren't supposed to take me serious.
Your problem for believing it.
Yeah, I gave you the disclaimer. It's almost, and speaking of stocks or trading, this is kind of what we have to do. There needs to be some sort of innovation that goes on, and that innovation, it's uncomfortable to the evidence informed chiropractor because it's outside of evidence, right? Like you have to create a product that has zero evidence because there isn't going to be a product created that has evidence.
Right.
And then you have to the product itself has to prove a concept that is somehow steeped in some sort of evidence. So
Right.
if you just made up a magic wand that sort of like tapped people on the forehead and it was supposed to eliminate headaches, of course you're going to get an immense amount of skepticism around that. People are actually going to laugh at you and make fun of you. But if there's at least some sort of base, like, look, we understand this physiological concept. This is a way I think we can tap into that physiological concept with some sort of tool or mechanism or technique, then this is the way to go about it. Now, you're not going to invent a technique, are you?
No.
Because thank you, because this podcast would end right at this point. I think we have enough techniques. You
can't. So that's honestly, I get asked by a lot of people, even people who will buy these. Is there a technique? Is there and I'm such an I'm a learn everything and use what fits kind of guy that I'm like, you guys are all
chiropractors aren't like that, man. They're
not
like that.
We're very intelligent people. You've been through tons of schooling. You know the body. This is how it works. This is how you use it. Now go do it. You know what I mean?
I disagree with you, and I'm not going to knock chiropractors in general. But once again, I've been observing at least 10,000 chiropractors on the whole over 7 or 8 years now, and how they behave, the questions they ask, the motivations, what buttons they push and why they push those buttons, why they choose to go to certain continuing education or not. And I think there is a percentage of people, I would love if that was like our people, was that percentage of people that were the self-motivated, self-educated, intellectually curious, really love to dig into concepts and ideas and work them out. And then I think a huge amount of chiropractors are just like, tell me what to do and tell me how to bill for it so I can get paid. Like, not that they don't give a crap. I look at how now there's that pejorative towards chiropractors, right? Like, you're not a real doctor, or you went to chiropractic school to be called a doctor, but you didn't want to go to medical school because it would have been harder and longer. And I don't believe that for the majority of people, but I know for sure there are definitely people that chose to be chiropractors because it was the easiest way to get to that doctor title. And we all want to deny that those people don't exist in our profession, but they're a mass of them. And that kind of person makes decisions later on in their life like, okay, so show me the easier way to do this, and then show me the easier way to do that, and then show me the easiest way to get this done. Who can I hire to consult for me to get this done? And you see this over and over again in our profession. What has the consulting business been for 30 or 40 years? What has the most recent social media setup been? The people that hit you with the social media ads will get you 50 new patients, just give us your money. And when we work with people in the Chiropractic Success Academy, I think we tend to attract the people who are self-motivated and intellectually want to dive into things and figure them out to a degree. They also want help too, which is great. Everyone wants a community. That's why the FTCA exists. But what I've also encountered, people are like, I don't want to learn how to do marketing. I don't want to learn how to do any of this stuff. Just tell me how to get new patients. I need 10 more new patients. Give me those 10 new patients. Like, I'm not a crack dealer. Like you gotta, I can't just bring you biscuits, you got to figure this stuff out on your own. And I'm definitely a teach a man to fish instead of just giving them fish kind of person. But I think if we assume in a profession that's small, but still 200,000 people or so, if we assume they all behave the same way and that they're all like really intellectual, or even honest or intellectually honest, we're going to get in trouble, especially on a business end of things when we're trying to help people out. So that's a little pushback from me. I think on a what would you call it, on a percentage basis, we tend to, in our evidence informed community, have people that are a little more like you would like to figure, that would like to dig in, and they do. I'm sure you get questions all the time like, how does a drop release work from a neurological basis? And they actually want you to explain that to them, right?
Right.
And other people, we don't tend to get the kind of chiros that are like, well, how many new patients is this device gonna, like, if I buy one of these for so many dollars, when do I get my money back as far as how many new patients do I have to see? Have you ever had to run an ad like that?
No, but you know what?
Start our nutrition program now, and all you need is 5 new patients for it to pay for itself.
If you can treat one extra patient a week, you're going to pay for the thing
Right.
But
You got a solid investment. How's your cider, by the way, during our fireside chat? Is that a good hot apple cider you're drinking there?
Well, it's got some heat to it, but it's not.
For this, I apologize to people that are going to catch this on audio anyways, audio only, but we've set up a nice fall fireside chat. We've got some pumpkins above the fireplace on the mantle and a fall wreath and some nice leaves around us.
You should really have couple of your dogs there and have your shotgun on the mantle.
This is exactly what my backyard looks like. Yes. Oh, it's raining. I derailed you because you were saying positive things about people.
Oh.
And I will say positive things about people and negative things about people. I'm not afraid to do that.
I was saying that, and honestly, that's probably where some of the issues with volume here come in, is that I'm approaching this like, you don't need me to tell you that. You're a doctor, you know where the muscles are, and I probably just need to be a little clearer with some of that stuff, because it's there, it's all there. It's just one of those things, But I'm just saying that's the way my mind works, is okay, I know how to do this, and this in this area. Now I can apply it in a similar fashion of this area. Now,
I think a lot of people are getting into rotary athletes these days, and this is a game changer for the rotary athletes, since you have to generate so much power around those ball and socket joints. This is a game changer for people who work with baseball and softball pitchers. Obviously, hockey is a good one. Golf. This is a game changer for those people who do treat CrossFit athletes and gymnasts, the ones that have to generate power through those joints. If somebody came up to you and they said, well, if we're using this drop release and we hit, a muscle with it, what does it do to the muscle? What's going on? I don't understand. What do you say?
Well, it's triggering the Golgi tendon organ reflex, and it's causing a reflex that makes the muscle relax. It's like basically the opposite of the check your reflexes thing, right? Like where we knee and it kicks. This one we hit it and it makes it relax. You've played with it around the shoulder. You can go from restricted flexion of the shoulder to 100% range in seconds, and you can show it pretty fast. But then the next question I get, and back that up a little bit too, and so that was the intention here, was to affect that muscle spindle cell Golgi tendon organ balance, and it was working, and I was just trying to proof of concept time. I'm going to play with this a little bit, and I had a new patient come in, MS patient. She was in a wheelchair, and she had the whole claw configuration of her upper limb. And I thought to myself, all right, so if this is doing what I think it's doing, which is a spinal cord level reflex, this should be able to get underneath that descending inhibition that is not there and affect it. So that was my thinking. And so she was fine with it. We tried it. I hit her forearm a couple of times. I got into her bicep, her wrist. I couldn't get into the intrinsics of the hand because they were too small. But within minutes, she could fully see where you can see me here. She could straighten her whole arm out and her wrist back, and she had all of that full motion back. And of course, it didn't stay. And I don't know how long it stayed, but but I thought, okay, this is what we're doing. And
Right.
on the other side of that, if I were, say, a Carrick guy, a big neuro person, or if I were a physical therapist who worked with brain injuries, things like that, that just opened up a big time therapeutic window.
Yep. Window of opportunity. Yeah.
Working those opposite pathways and, maybe rerouting some of that wiring, so to speak. But yeah, so I know that the concept is there and the neuroscience is there. It's just a matter of,
Well, this is the thing where people need to get it in their hands and do it and use it. I mean, this is so when we
honestly,
talk. Go ahead.
I was gonna say honestly, and I've been really buckling down on my social media stuff here lately, and I don't know what's gone out what day or what, but one of them says, I think it was today actually, was a clip from The Office of Dwight, and it just said, "Fact: if you treat athletes, you should 100% use
I think
drop."
so. I think so.
If honestly, I wouldn't want to treat athletes without it anymore, just because, I mean, I could, obviously I did for a decade, but it's just so much faster and opens things up so much faster. I think anybody who treats CrossFit athletes or wants to, anybody who is in those, upper echelons of people who are willing to go through a little bit of discomfort to get where they need to be, like people
Right.
who are distance runners, people like that who are able to live on that edge of, I'm just going to push through it. You know, those are the people I think that I don't think anybody would be disappointed, so.
And the good news is, if you're an FTCA member, you can get some, I guess you could call it digital training on drop release, because you have a whole channel within the hub that's going to have plenty of content on how to use and more of this proof of concept idea.
Yeah, I've been putting out a little less than I would like to have, but I got, we got 3-4 videos out there, and I got some things on the website too, and all those are going to be kind of cut down into a little more manageable bite-sized pieces for the hub. Trying to get a little feedback from people who have it, and what would you like to see out there as resources, things like that. And if people have questions about it or would like to see, and I nobody's really I think Jeff Williams is the only one that's taken me up on this. When I said, put out there, hey, what do you want to see? How we treat it with this? And he shot back scalenes, and I posted that video right away.
He is one of the ones, so we'll correct the record. He is one of the ones that is intellectually curious, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Even if he's got bad taste in football teams, can't help where a guy's born.
Excuse me. We'll edit that sneeze out, but that's the bad thing about doing video. You can't avoid it. The good thing we're outside and we're socially distanced, so we can't spread any disease that way.
Well, hey, not only am I vaccinated, but I also had the pleasure of having COVID about a month ago. So
yeah,
that's fun.
I had it when this all first started. So I remember we went to Washington D.C., me and my wife, and I spoke at ACA Engage 2020, Engage 2020, and everyone was talking about this COVID thing when we flew out.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird trip, because that was also when President Trump was being impeached. So there's all this buzz around DC about the impeachment, and people were getting tickets to go see the impeachment, and everyone kind of had under this sort of like under their breath, they were talking about this Chinese virus that was going around, or that's what they were calling it at the time, right? But you can't call it that anymore. There was this Chinese virus that was over in China, and what if it came over to America? And we got back home, and my stepdaughter just returned from New York, so it was like maybe a couple weeks later she returned from a trip from New York, and we thought she was dying in her room. The noises that were coming from that room, poor sick child. And next thing you know, the whole house had it. And I think this is that thing. This is that thing they're talking about. And of course, there was no testing or confirming that at that point. It could have been some sort of crud, but it was COVID.
You were the vector that brought it to the Pacific Northwest.
My daughter was, yeah. My stepdaughter was the vector, absolutely, from New York, where it was really bad. Remember when COVID first started, like New York, and it was like a weird, much more severe strain. Yeah, and she brought it back to Oregon. So that was us. We did that.
World changers.
So in your state in North Dakota, are you guys, the providers, mandated to be vaccinated, or are you still, do you have a choice in the matter?
I'm not even sure because I just did it. So I wasn't paying attention.
That's the proper answer, by the way. That's the politically correct answer.
Well, it's the true answer. I work for a large health system, so they didn't force us either, but it was one of those things where it was available. So my wife's got an autoimmune disease, so I want to protect her as much as I can too. And so mother-in-law going through cancer treatments, all of that stuff.
Yeah. Did you have a breakthrough case, or did you get COVID and then get vaccinated?
No, I got vaccinated. I got a breakthrough. I got vaccinated back in like January. My teenage daughter had COVID in October, where we all got the mandatory 2.5 weeks off of work. None of the rest of us got it, and we didn't distance from her. And then so then I got the vaccinations, and then I picked it up here back a couple weeks or a month, probably a month and a half ago now. Just a breakthrough case, and then the rest of us got it except my 6-year-old. She's the toughest one, I guess. So, but yeah, we all, no real bad effects. Just congestion, taste and smell, which probably should have stayed away longer. Maybe I would be a smaller man than I am right now.
I'm one serious pandemic virus away from my ideal weight for sure.
Right.
Do you think, how do you think all this has affected practice in general? Do you feel like you've adapted and overcame?
Yeah.
Is there a new normal now that you guys will have to function in a larger system in a certain way?
I've worn a mask all day, every day for the last, since March of 2020, I suppose. So at least I don't need to wear goggles anymore. We had goggles for a while. It's just, it's gotten to be normal where I've got a whole large group of patients that if I saw them out at a mall somewhere, and this happened to me just the other day, a patient who had just been in as a new patient, I saw her at a basketball game sitting by people I knew, didn't recognize her. Figured it out the next day, talking to her in the clinic. We both have our masks on again. I'm like, oh, that was you, So it's there's this whole group of people that wouldn't even know who we were,
Do you think in a delivery system of chiropractic, which is really interpersonal and hands-on, do you think it's affected outcomes at all to be masked up, gloved up, face shielded up with that extra layer in between you and the patient?
I don't feel like it has in my practice, I guess, but we don't have to have masks on. We just have to, do the alcohol hand wash thing on the way in and on the way out. Otherwise it's been pretty normal. And
it's going to be interesting for me to ask that with people I interview, because there's different rules by a different state. I mean, if you're here in Oregon, it's obviously it's a clinical experience, but we're talking about it's like an ET. Remember when the scientists came in to get ET and there's the bubble tent, and it's like a bubble tent experience on many levels here in Oregon.
The naked gun body condom thing.
So it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to that, depending on what kind of state regulations they have, as far as whether they think taking away that layer of personal connection makes a difference or not.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're still hands-on and try to do everything the same. I verbally harass all the little old ladies just the way I always.
Perfect.
And nobody teases them. Nobody else teases them.
Hey, who doesn't deserve it more than a little old lady? You know what I'm saying? They've been getting by a little too easy these days.
They love to shoot it back, and
they're the best at it. Yeah, I'm sure those North Dakota little old ladies too. They're forged in in cold iron and steel at that point.
Yeah. I remember the first time I made fun of my wife's 90-year-old grandmother. Turned around and everybody's eyes were huge and their jaws were open, and she was just laughing at me.
So I'm going to take you to the woodshed. Before we go, do you have any questions for me?
For you? No, I don't know. When are we going to get to do this live thing again? I mean, I know we were in Kansas City this summer, and then I was all excited to come to possibly get to New Orleans, and then
so New Orleans had a double whammy there. First, it was the Delta variant was wreaking some havoc, but they also just weren't ready from an economic standpoint, which we can all see now. I don't know how it looks for you all in North Dakota, but service-based businesses, restaurants, hotels, taxis and Ubers, like they're not ready yet to take on people.
Right.
And these hotels in New Orleans, which, people flock there from all over the world, but especially from all over the South and the Midwest, they love New Orleans. The hotels were not ready for people. Like we just, how you can call somebody on any normal year or any normal, and they're right there, Johnny on the spot, ready to serve you, ready to answer your call, ready to make reservations for you. It was hard to even get return phone calls from all the facilities. And then the Delta thing was on top of that. And the Delta thing there, were just starting to pass a whole bunch of more regulations about sort of like a vaccine passport type level things. And you know what New Orleans is. New Orleans is the big giant, like 3-yard long slushy of bourbon or whatever it is, the hurricane, right? You get like a 3-foot long plastic bone of hurricane, and you eat bad and you just party all night long. And they were getting smoked. Basically, their economy is getting smoked, and they couldn't handle it. They didn't have the people. No one's working.
Right.
And at the time of this recording, which is 2 months after that event would have happened, still nobody's working. It's hard to get people to work, especially in service-based businesses and hospitality.
Anybody needs a job, come to North Dakota, man. Everybody's hiring. Right.
Well, it's not about needing a job. No one wants a job. And or a lot of people don't want a job. And then after that, then there was a hurricane as well.
Right.
So I had a premonition, and some people would say that my premonitions are uncanny sometimes, and I just had a bad feeling about it all. We could have gone through with it. We had plenty of people registered. We were ready to go. And I just had a premonition, so it's just better to wait a year. And then the hurricane hit, and everyone's like, how do you know this stuff? And my mom would say, my precious little Bobby's got this vision.
Well, you got a vision, that's for sure.
So what we're going to do is we will do that one next year. We understand that there's a demand. There still isn't enough. We all are itching to do live events. It's just not. It's not there yet.
I'm going to be down in Dallas here this weekend with.
You can tell me how it goes. I mean, it's a live event. I mean, no one's better at live events than like Parker and things of that nature. No one's better at live events than those folks. And some people will be ready to do it a lot sooner than others. But even last night, trick-or-treating, you could still see, like, this is sentiment from people who are not in our business. You got to look at the sentiment of the rest of the country and kind of follow that. It's macroeconomics. So we're looking at the sentiment of trick-or-treaters or houses that were, lights on or lights off. Last year, no trick-or-treating at all. I mean, you might have a couple diehard houses that had the lights on. This year, we were back. The neighborhood had plenty of lights on, but there were people who had like signs on their doors and like literally police taped off their yards to prevent people from coming in their yards with these signs up like, no trick-or-treating, coronavirus. Don't you know that there's a deadly virus out there? And I'm like, lady, you could have just turned your lights off. Like, there's a universal code in trick-or-treating. Right. It's just keep your lights off and no one will bother you. You don't have to put up police tape and signs, but there are a couple of those out there. So there's a fear that still permeates the environment, and that's an unfortunate part of public health. Sometimes to get people to behave in a public health beneficial manner, you have to scare the crap out of them, and then they will start to behave in ways that are beneficial for public health. Now the downside of that is that once the danger is gone, the fear
You turn it
remains.
off, right?
And now we have people that are still scared witless about the disease, and that's okay. That is what it is. It's okay. But we'll eventually get through it, and hopefully, yes, eventually we'll have live events. What we are,
Oh, I know we will. I mean, and the Kansas City, that was a good time. That was
oh yeah,
yeah.
we have actually for, that New Orleans event's not canceled, it's rescheduled for September of next year, but we have some surprises in order for that September New Orleans event. We are not giving up on New Orleans. So hold your chickens for a New Orleans event, September 2022.
All right.
Hey, I think this video thing worked out good. I like these fireside chats, kept me kind of toasty. And thank you for supporting the FTCA with Drop Release, and know that we're ride or die with you. So we see you as an entity that's worth investing in, and we're going to keep the investment in supporting you. And someday it's going to go to the moon. It's going to be like Dogecoin or GameStop stock. You're going to the moon, man. People are going to start putting these on their
we should just invent our own crypto or something. Better, I guess. I don't know what it is.
I'm thinking about that now. From a blockchain standpoint, this can help you. You don't have to know what blockchain is, but we talked about this research thing, right? Like you've got low access to research dollars and low access to test subjects, right? But what if you had a program on the blockchain where people could use the drop release in their own practices, make some certified measurements in their own practices all across the globe, put that information into a computerized system on the blockchain, then you can collect much more data about what you're doing. And that's the power of crypto and blockchain in the future.
Yeah, well, that's huge. And you know what, we've had the discussions like this, but before the whole blockchain thing was the big deal, was okay. We have these people out there doing this. Now we need to, talking about collecting that, but that would
value speaks, man. So results are value at this point. And if we need to create a drop coin, we'll create drop coin.
Drop coin. I like it.
I don't know how that's going to work in the crypto market. I don't know how many people are going to buy a drop coin, but right now there's a coin called Bounce, and Bounce coin is quite valuable. So you can name them just about anything. Think about this. Think about just a simple token that's called health token. So instead of health insurance, you buy this crypto coin called health, and a government can subsidize and give each person a certain number of health coin that they put in their pocket, and then they buy healthcare services with that coin. The doctors get paid based on outcomes. So, it's like they do in Europe. You get someone to quit smoking, you get someone to reduce their body mass index or reduce their insulin dependence, or manage their diabetes. From a rehab standpoint, you get them, exercising again. You get their mile down under a 4-minute mile, whatever. Like the doctors can get rewarded in the coin based on the performance. You lower their outcome assessment scores when it comes to pain, chronic pain, things like that. The doctors get rewarded not just for the service they provide, which is what we do now, right? Fee for service. You pay me a certain amount of money, I do some crap to you, and then regardless of the outcome, I still get paid, and then you walk away with whatever outcome you got. Not great for patients, but if there were positive patient outcomes related to this coin and the doctors got paid based on the coin and the service, and then people could just buy coin and donate it for people in need, like people who need health services that don't have the access to them, and some of that coin can be staked. I don't want to get into staking right now. It's a complicated thing to explain, but they could stake it in research. So then when we find research that's valuable that needs to be invested in, instead of it being pharmaceutically based, motivated or driven investment, the investment can be based on outcomes or goals or things that we want to accomplish on a human basis instead of on a pharmaceutical basis for profit. So that's the kind of thing that a crypto blockchain coin based world can be. And most people that are older, like you and me, I picked you first, but me, I think I'm older than you actually. we don't understand these things as much. I try to explain this to my sister-in-law, and she's like, well, it's all just made up. It's not real money. I'm like, you don't understand, the American dollar is not real money.
Right.
It's at least
The whole
the
concept of currency itself is
the
created.
crypto thing does go back to a true exchange of values. And you know what? This is where chiropractic, or whatever you want to call it, or drop release, or rehab, or whatever the heck anyone is doing, this is where value hits, the rubber meets the road. And if something is valuable, it will exist and persist. If it's not valuable, as the currency and the economy of the world changes, it will disappear. So be inspired, because I believe that what you're doing is right and you've got a good thing going. Just keep doing what you're doing, and when the value is seen, the world will know.
Beautiful.
You like that?
I do.
Okay,
And I think this is maybe Bobby does have a vision.
Yeah. Well, there was one, to close this out, there was one really, this guy has invented like who knows how many things. He's like a uber billionaire or whatever. He said an idea is great, but it's worthless. An idea and $10 million, now you can do something with the idea, right? You know, an idea and $1 billion, you can take over the world. It's like ideas come and go, but you know, you have to have an idea and then some fire behind it. And we're trying to give you some fire. I don't have $10 million. So, but I'm giving you all I got.
All right.
And I got tons of ideas and no one's giving me crap. So this is great. First return to the podcast. I couldn't think of doing it with a better person. You were like my brother from another stronger hockey mother.
There you go.
So I'll talk to you soon. Hopefully in person. Right.
Yes.